All right, welcome back everyone. We are back in our Xcode project. And before we start this one, I just want to point out that most of the videos that I have on my channel, in every video we are starting from scratch. We're creating a new file. This video is not like that, unfortunately. This video, we are continuing what we did in the last video. So in the last video in this series, so actually 2 videos back in this series, we set up CloudKit, we connected to CloudKit. And then the last video in this series, we did a bunch of CRUD functions in CloudKit. We did the create, read, update, delete functions for our fruits. So we added a bunch of fruits to our database. And I have my CloudKit database here. It's pretty simple if you want to just catch up to speed. It's just a record type called fruits, and each fruit has a name. And here we can see the name is coconut and apple. Now, when we did that, and I started talking about it in the last video, when we go to upload these CK records, I'll right click and jump to the definition here. So in the docs, we can see all of the types that CK record, the fields inside a CK record can have. And these are all the types here. So we can have strings, dates, data, bool, integer. But you're going to notice here that there is nothing that says images, videos, or audio. And that's because we can't upload an image directly to CloudKit. Instead, we have to convert it to a CKAsset and then upload the CKAsset. And it actually ends up being a benefit for us that we have to do this because normally all these fields that we have in our CK record, when we go to download a CK record like this coconut, we get all of that data when we download it immediately. So when we download this coconut, we're going to get these fields, this coconut field. And the difference is if this coconut had a CKAsset inside of it and we went to download the coconut, we wouldn't actually download the asset, but rather a URL to where that asset is being stored. So the actual asset that we're uploading, that image, that video, that audio, is not actually going to be inside the CK record of this coconut, but rather just a link to it, and then we'll be able to download it separately. And this is actually ideal. This is what we want in our apps because oftentimes we're going to download a whole bunch of CK records, so a whole bunch of fruits, and we're only going to want to download the assets, like the images for those fruits, if those images are coming onto the screen. And that's because those images or those videos are going to be bigger files. So we want to avoid downloading all these extra big files if we can. So in the long run, this is actually a benefit for our app. But it is a slightly different configuration on how we upload and download these, so I wanted to make a specific video on this, obviously because it is a pretty common use case in CloudKit. Alright, so I'm going back to our Xcode project here, and real quickly, let's just jump back to our CloudKit CRUD bootcamp. So for those of you who are just joining, we have a very basic fruit model. It just has a name and then a reference to the CK record. And we have a very basic UI here. We can type in some fruit, we can add it, and it'll join to our list. And then these fruits, we can either delete them, we can update them. So just for example, I'm going to type in watermelon, and I'm going to click add. And I noticed a second ago as I started recording this that it's not updating on my screen when I add it. And I think it's partly because I have really bad internet right now. My internet's actually down. I'm using a hotspot, as you guys can see up here. So what I'm going to do just for this video is this dispatch queue after we save the item. I'm just going to change this to async after, and let's just do now plus maybe 2 seconds. So I'm just going to do a 2-second delay between adding something and then our next fetch request to refresh our UI here. So let's try that one more time. I'm not really too worried about this because in a future video we're actually going to kind of rewrite a lot of this CloudKit code to make it a nice utility class. But right now, so I have my watermelon. If I add another one, an orange, hopefully it updates after 2 seconds. And cool, we got an orange here. And in this video, when we go to add a new fruit, I just want to upload an image with that fruit. So I don't want to deal with all of like the downloading an image like you would in an actual app. So what I'm going to do is I have an image in my assets folder already, and you can take any image from your computer and just drag it into your assets folder for this. I have an image of the rock. We actually used it in a previous video in this series. So I'm just going to take this image from my assets folder and we're going to upload that. So drag in any image to your assets folder and let's go back to our add item function. And in this add item function, let's first create a reference to that image. So let's say guard let image equals UI image named, and I named it the rock. This is the exact string that I have in my asset here, the rock. And then we'll say else return. I know this is an actual image, so it's not going to fail here. And then, as I was just saying, we can't actually just take this image and add it to our CK record. So we can't call new fruit image and then equals image. This is going to throw us an error because we can't upload a UI image directly to CloudKit. We're actually even getting the error right here in the compiler, which is really nice. That UI image does not conform to the protocol. So what we actually need to do is upload this as a CKAsset. If I open the parentheses here, we can see that we need a file URL. So basically, even though we already have this image in our app, we can only upload it as a CKAsset to CloudKit if it is saved to a URL on our device. So if you've been following my series, you are well aware how to use the file manager because we've covered it in many videos. But basically, we need to save the image to the file manager, save it to the device, and then wherever we save it, that URL we are going to pass in to our CKAsset. So even if we didn't have this in our bundle right here, and if we were downloading this from the internet, after we downloaded that image, we would then first have to save it to the file manager and then convert it to a CKAsset to upload it to CloudKit. It sounds like a lot of steps, but it will all happen pretty quickly behind the scenes. So it's really not that difficult once you write a little bit of code for it. All right, so I'm going to, let's say, let path equals, and I'm going to move a little quickly here because I've covered file manager so many times, but let's save it to the file manager .default.urls, and we're going to save it in the, let's do the caches directory. I think it's the most common. For the user domain mask, and this returns us an array of URLs, so I want to get the first URL from there, and then we need to give it just like an image name that we're going to save it for. So we'll save it as .appending path component, and I'll just save it as the rock.jpg. And let's actually make sure this is let's actually put this inside our guard statement as well. So we'll say guard let image equals this, comma, and then we'll say let path equals this, comma, and then we also need to get the data from this image. So we'll say let data equals image dot JPEG data, and we'll do compression quality of 1.0. So we're not going to compress it. Then we'll do else return. So here we're making sure we have an image, we're making sure we have the path where we're going to save the image in our file manager, and then we're making sure that we can get the data from the image. And now that we have the data, we can actually save it to the path. So we'll do a quick little do catch statement here. We're going to try to data.write, and we're going to write to the path. This should actually be URL. Let's call this URL, and we'll write to the URL. And so if this is successful and this does not throw an error, then we're going to say let asset equals CKAsset, and we'll pass in our URL. Then we'll take this line of code here and we'll paste it up here. So we'll add this image field to our new fruit, and the asset will be the asset that we just made. And then finally, after we add this image, we can then call save. So I'm going to take this and put it up here, and this will be catch let error, and here we can just print out the error if we get one, which I don't think we will. All right, let's try this out. I'm going to build and run this project here. So basically, whatever we add, whatever the name is, it's going to find this image of the rock and hopefully save it to the file manager, add it as part of our fruit, and then save that to CloudKit. So here I'm going to add a new fruit, and let's use peach, and I'm going to click add. And we'll wait 2 seconds, and hopefully it updated. My UI did not, my UI updated now. And let's go take a look at the database here. So I'm going to reload the database, our CloudKit container, and I should have a new We can see it here, this peach, and this peach has a binary file attached to it. So this is really cool because we can see right off the bat here, we're not even diving into any of the data. We can see right off the bat that only this one has an image. It's got this binary file. And I can even click this little download button and it's going to download whatever that file is. And this is so handy when you start debugging your apps. So when I open up that file, I can see whatever it is. So clearly we have a nice picture of the rock. But this is really handy because a lot of times if users are uploading your images or users are uploading audio, it's really hard when you're in your database to really know what you're actually looking at sometimes. So the fact that we can just click this button and see that video, that audio, that image is really, really handy. And what I want to point out is when I click into this asset, as I was saying before, we can see down here the fruit now has two fields. We have image and we have name. And this, of course, is an asset with the binary file. So we can edit it here. But what's really important is that when we go to download these fruits, it's not going to actually give us this binary file by default. So instead, it's going to give us a URL to where this binary file is in CloudKit. All right, so I want to show you that before we actually download it. So let's jump back to our Xcode project, and we have a function in here, our fetch items function. And in our fetch items function, we have record matched block, and we are appending all of our records as we get them. So I'm on iOS 15, so I know this closure is going to execute, not this closure down here. So I'm just, as we get these records, let's just print them to the console quick. So let's print the record. And I'm going to build and run the app, and the fetch is called as soon as we run our app. So we should get a bunch of records printing to the console. Cool. And I want to just show you guys here that, so these are the records that are coming through, and we can see that our new record down here, this peach, also has this image, and clearly this is not actually an image. Instead, we are getting a CKAsset, and inside that asset, we're getting the path to where this is saved. Now I want to just point out also that the path that we're getting back here, this URL that we are getting back from CloudKit, is not the same as the URL where we saved our image. So this URL in the file manager is the URL that's saved to the device. So we saved our image to the device. Then we uploaded it to CloudKit, and in CloudKit, it saved it to a URL in CloudKit. So what we're getting back from CloudKit is the CloudKit URL, not the file manager URL. But now that we have this URL, we can actually just download it directly from CloudKit. So let's do that really quickly. So I'm going to go up to, let's go to our fruit model, and in addition to getting the name, let's also get, let's say, let image URL, and let's make it of type URL, and we'll make it optional because we only have an image on one fruit right now. So when we go to initialize our fruits, so it's down in our record matched block here, we can fix and we can add in our image URLs. And then here, let's say, let image asset, and we'll set it equal to the record, and we'll access the image key, and we'll try to cast that as a CKAsset. And if we can get that, we'll say let image URL equals image asset, and then inside the asset is the file URL. So again, this is optional, but it's okay because we made it optional in our actual fruit model. So we can take the image URL and pass it here. All right, I'm going to copy this and just paste it down here as well, and then paste in our image URL. And we just need to change this to returned record. I probably should have just made this record from the get-go. But now when we download our fruit models, they might have an image URL. And if it has an image URL, we want to obviously put that onto the screen. So let's go down to our view here. I'm going to go to our list where we have just the names of each fruit. All right, let's put this text inside maybe an H stack. So I'll put the text first. And after, on the right side of the text, we're going to put the image. All right, and then the fruit might have a URL. So first let's check if that fruit actually has an image URL. So we'll say if let URL equals fruit dot image URL. And then if we get that URL, we want to try to download the data from that URL. So a convenient way to download from that URL, we can say let data equals data, and there's a content of completion. And this will initialize data with the content of a URL. So this is exactly what we want. We will pass in our URL. And we can see the compiler here is telling us that this call can throw and is not marked with try. So this data can possibly throw errors. So let's actually just try to get the data, and we're going to use a question mark so that if it fails, it is okay. And we're doing this inside our if-let statement, so it's all right. And then if we do get this data, we obviously want to create an image from that data. So then we can say let image equals, and we'll create a UI image from, and there's a data completion, of course. So we'll pass in the data to here, and then we'll open the brackets. So if this fruit has a URL, and we can get the data, and we can convert it to an image, then of course let's put the image on the screen. So we're going to create an image from a UI image. We'll pass in our image. Let's make it resizable, and let's give it a frame of maybe 50 by 50. All right. I'm going to press play on the simulator. Let's pop this up, and hopefully we can now download and we can see one image. All right, and just like that, we now have our image in our app. So I'm not going to go through the rest of this to actually build out a UI so that we can upload different images for different fruits. We can do that in a future course. But the point I wanted to get across in this video is that when we're uploading just regular data types like strings, booleans, we can do that directly into our CK record. So the same way we added our name here, we can add in any other string or integer or boolean, any of those normal data types. But when we're dealing with images or videos or audio files, we first need to get those files in our code. So here I have the image, and then we need to convert that file to some sort of data, and then we need to save that data to a location in the file manager. And after it is written to the file manager, we can then convert it into a CKAsset and then upload that CKAsset as part of our model in CloudKit. And again, when we are looking in CloudKit, we can then see that those fields will be uploaded as assets. But when we download this CK record, it's not going to download this binary file by default. Instead, it's going to give us a URL to where this binary file is saved in CloudKit. And then separately, we can go and download that binary data. So in our app right now, we are creating our fruit model where we're getting that URL, but we're not actually downloading the image from that URL until we are basically putting it onto the screen. Literally, as we are putting it onto the screen, we are downloading it from the database. And in a more robust app, you probably wouldn't be doing some of this download directly on the view here. You would probably create some sort of other image downloader class that is dealing with downloading these images and then just putting the image on the screen. But I just wanted to make this quick video to kind of point this out because I think it's a very common use case. If you're using CloudKit, chances are you're going to at least want to upload a couple images to your database. All right, guys, that was it for this one. This was a quick video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And we have, I think, 2 more videos in this little CloudKit segment here. Thank you for watching. As always, I am Nick. This is Swiftful Thinking, and I will see you in the next video.